Morning, everyone. Eh, Let me welcome you to MedZone African Motives. Today, I want us to share with you Business Studies Grade 12, Paper 2, so as to keep ourselves fit, ready for the preparatory examinations that we are going to write. So let's make sure that we get ready, we get prepared so that we are going to make it on the exams that you're going to write under business studies, grade 12. So this is business studies grade 12 preparatory examination that was written September 2024, last year. So now let us try by all means to make ourselves ready for the one that we're going to write for 2025 by making sure that we are going to revise this one of last year, September 2024. So that is that. So now let us move on to the instructions. So our instructions read as follows. Read the following instructions carefully before answering the questions. So before you can attend to any questions, make sure that you go through the instructions because they are very important. Instructions are very important because you can fail the exam because of not following what the instructions. So the first instruction is this. This question paper consists of 3 sections and covers 2 main topics. Section A is compulsory, so it's a must for us to attend it. There is no way that we cannot answer Section A. Section A is compulsory. Section B consists of 3 questions. Answer any two of the 3 questions in this section. Though ourselves, you're going to answer them all. You're going to answer 3 of them. Section C consists of 2 questions, which is, we're talking about the essay questions. So answer one of the 2 questions in this section. So that is the essay questions, which we are going to do it later on. Section C will do it later on. Read the instructions for each question carefully and take note of what is required. Note that only the answers to the first 2 questions selected in section B and the answer to the first question selected in section C will be marked. That is that. Number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. No marks will be awarded for answers that are numbered incorrectly. So don't lose marks because of what? Of failing to number the question marks correctly. So make sure that you are going to number them correctly according to the numbering system that is used in this question paper. Except where our instructions are given, answers must be written in full sentences. Use mark allocation and the nature of each question to determine the length and depth of an answer. That is true. Use the table below as a guide for marks and time allocation when answering each question. So here is our table that we are taught about. So here is our table. So make sure that you are going to use it as a guide so that you are going to know the time allocation when answering each question. So that is that. So instruction number 7, begin the answer to each question on a new page. For example, question 1, new page, question 2, new page. Hope we will get that clearly. You may use a non-programmable calculator. You may use a non-programmable calculator. Write neatly and legibly. So that is that. So now we're moving on. Very today, questions now without wasting time. So let us attend to the questions now. Whereby we are going to start with section A, which we are told that is compulsory. You know very well there in the instructions that we've just read now that section A is compulsory. So let us now attend to question 1 of our section A. So it says various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only letter AD next to the question number 1.1 to 1.15 in the answer book, e.g. 1.1 to 1.16. So now let's now attend to question. It says a factor that KV Enterprise must consider when making an investment. So when making an investment, which is the factor that this guy KV, this KV Enterprise must consider. So we are given buildings, people, inflation rate, as well as investors. So which one is correct? The correct one is inflation rate, because inflation can significantly impact investment returns. It can impact our investment returns. When making investment decisions, considering inflation helps ensure that investment returns is going to keep pace with or exceed the inflation rate, thereby maintaining purchasing power of the investment. So that is why we are saying a key enterprise must consider what the inflation rate. So now let us move on. 1.12 reads as follows. In the following company, the past and present directors are held responsible for the debt of the business. So we are given these answers, possible answers. Fori Ltd, Demba Sock Ltd, Larson's Proprietary Ltd, Henias INC. Henias INC. So now we are to come up with what? With the correct answer. Because when we talk about INC, we're talking about incorporated entity. We're talking about incorporated entity. So now, which is the correct answer here? So the correct answer is D. The correct answer is D. So what it means is that we are talking about the heinous. So this question likely refers to the liability structure. It refers to the liability structure of different types of business entities. So the INC, which is this one, is what? It typically denotes an incorporated entity. So that is the correct answer, that whereby the past and the present directors are held responsible for the debt of the business. So that is that. Now we are moving on to 1.13. 1.13. It says Mary used dash leadership fuel during a period when her organization experienced radical changes. So we are given answers whereby we have to choose the correct one. Transactional, autocratic, charismatic, transformational. So the correct answer is D, transformational. The correct answer is D, which is transformational. So transformational leadership is particularly effective during periods of significant change. The transformational leadership, this is particularly effective during the periods of significant change. So this is a leadership style involves inspiring and motivating employees to achieve a shared vision and adapt to new situations. You transform. So hope you are getting it. Now moving on to 1.14. Business must dash as a way to deal with tax evasion. Then we are given form monopolies, lobby with other business, keep honest and accurate financial records, create good working environment. So the correct answer is C. Keep honest and accurate financial records. So keep honest and accurate financial records as it is crucial for business to comply with tax laws and regulations. So they are to comply with tax laws and regulations, thereby helping to prevent tax evasion. So try to be what? Honest and give accurate financial records. Don't falsify your financial statements. So that is that. Now moving on to 1.15. It reads as follows. Collins, Collins' right to dash was violated when his chronic illness was publicly announced at workplace. So we are given freedom of speech and expression, privacy, security and protection, health care. So the correct answer is B, privacy. The correct answer is B, privacy. So publicly announcing an employee's chronic illness without their consent is a violation of their right to privacy. That is why the correct answer is privacy. Employees have a reasonable expectation that their personal health information will be kept confidential by the employer. So that is what we're saying is privacy. So now we are moving on. We're moving on to this is 1.3. Now we are moving on to 1.2. We're moving on to 1.2. So here we are on the 1.2. It reads as follows. Complete the following statements by using the words provided in the list below. Write only the words next to the question numbers. 1, 1.21, 2, 1.25 in the answer box. So here are the words that are given in the brackets that you are going to use to complete these statements. So without wasting time, let's go straight to the statements. 1.21, a lack of communication would cause what in the workplace? If there is a lack of communication, if the communication is not there in the workplace, it means that is going to cause what? Conflict. That is going to cause what? Conflict. That is going to cause what? A conflict. So moving on to 1.22. Sanjo's dash behavior conforms to a set of values that are morally acceptable. That are morally acceptable. Sanjo's dash behavior. So there we are talking about what? Ethical behavior. We are talking about what? Ethical behavior. So we are talking about the ethical behavior. So the correct answer is ethical behavior. As we know that ethical relates to moral principles and values. Ethical relates to moral principles and values that guide behavior and decision making. So science use ethical behavior to conform set of what? Of values that are morally acceptable. So 1.23, the owners at Luva-Longos, the owner of at Luva-Longos applied what? Dash technique by inventing what? A panel of experts to complete a questionnaire. So the correct answer is going to be what? Correct answer is Delphi technique. Is what? Delphi technique. That is our correct answer. Delphi technique as our Delphi technique is a structured communication method where experts provide what? Anonymous input to achieve consensus of or a forecast. Whereby they're going to give their views, whereby they are going to fill in the questionnaire, going to fill the questionnaire, while they are still at their respective uh, places. While they are, that is why we are saying the experts, it's a communication method where experts provide anonymous input to achieve consensus or focus. So that is a Delphi technique. It's the one that we invite what? A panel of experts to complete the questionnaire so as to help with very good forecast. So now we are moving on. Dash company requires a minimum of 3 or more directors. So we are saying dash company requires a minimum of 3 or more directors. So we are talking about a public company. Here we are talking about what? Public. Public company is the one that requires a minimum of 3 or more directors. That is that. So now we are moving on to 1.25. Oh, 1.2. 1.25. So 1.25, the CEO of Kia Crafters demonstrates dash because she is task-oriented in running the business. The CEO of Kia Crafters demonstrates dash because she is a task-oriented running the business. So the CEO is going to demonstrate management. Going to demonstrate management. So that is that. It's going to demonstrate management because she's a task-oriented in running a business. So here the answer is management. The answer is management. So now we are moving on. We are moving on to 1.3. 1.3, we are going to do the matching items. This is where we're going to answer the matching questions, where it reads as follows. Choose a description from column B that matches a term in column A. You're choosing a description from column B that matches what? A term in column A. So write only letter A to J next to the question numbers. That is 1.31 to 1.35 in the answer book. The example that we are given is 1.36K. So this is what we are expected to answer this question of the matching items. So let us quickly go to those matching and then see how we are going to deal with them. Then 1.31 says excess. So it says excess. So now we can go down and we can now want to know the description that is going to match the term in column A. We're going to look at the description that is going to match the term in column A, which now we are talking about the excess. So you can see that when you're talking about excess here, the correct answer is going to be G, where we are talking about the amount insured agrees, the amount insured agrees to pay for damages claimed. Amount insured agrees to pay for damages. So that is 1.31, that is J. That is a correct answer. Now we come to 1.32, limited liability. Limited liability. So as you can see, limited liability, the correct answer is going to be E. That's what we're talking about. The owner's personal assets may not be ceased to pay for debt of the business. We know very well that when we talk of the companies that ends with Pty Ltd as well as Ltd, we're talking about private company and public company. We know that their personal assets will not be seized if ever the business go bankrupt or fail to pay its debt. So that is what E, 1.32. Then we are going to write E. 1.33, overhead projector. So now let us go to a description and see which description matches what? That term, overhead projector. So we can see that H is the correct answer. This is whereby we are saying the presenter uses what? Transparencies to convey ideas. So the correct answer is H. The correct answer is H. Now we are moving on, triple bottom line. Now we are on triple bottom line. So triple bottom line. So now let us go and see which description is going to match that. Now we can see that I is the correct answer, whereby we are saying broken down into people, profit, and as well as planet. We know when you're talking about people, we are talking about what? Social. We're talking about the social. When you're talking about people, so we are saying the business should do what we call social responsibility. We're talking about social responsibility and impact on stakeholders, including employees as well as customers and the community. This is whereby you are giving back to the community. Now they are talking about what? Profit. Now, when we are talking about profit, we are talking about the economic. We can remind ourselves when you're talking about triple bottom line. So profit, you know, we are even saying the business is not supposed to make a profit at the expense of the community or there where it is established. Also, the part of its profit, the business must make sure that it's going to do what you call CSI, which is corporate social investment. They are going to invest into the community where it is operated, where the business is established. So that community, the business should take part of its profit and then try by all means to invest into that community. So now we have what? Planet now. Okay? So planet, you know very well that we are talking about the environment. We are talking about environmental. We're talking about environmental. So we are just trying to remind ourselves about the triple bottom line. So the environmental, we are talking about whereby you're going to make sure that they are going to keep the environment safe. You are going to make sure that the environmental sustainability as well as impact on natural resources. So you're going to make sure that the environment is safe and very healthy. So correct answer is I. The correct answer is I. The correct answer is I. So economic right. Now we are on economic right. So let us as well see the description that is going to match the economic right. Let us see the description that is going to match the economic right. So we can see that J is the correct answer. Freedom from forced labor. Matches what? Matches that term in column A, whereby it says economic right. So the correct answer is J. So that is all about the matching items. That is all about matching items. So now we are to go to question 2. Now we are to move to section B, where section B read as follows. Answer any 2 questions in this section, but as you've said, you're going to answer them all. You're going to answer all of those questions. So that is that. So now here is the note. Clearly indicate the question number of each question that you choose. The answer to each question must start on a new page. Easy question 2 on a new page, question 3 on a new page. So question 2, which is business ventures. It reads as follows. Name 4 principles of insurance. Name 4 principles of insurance. So we have to name 4 principles of insurance. So with principle of insurance, we are going to have what? Indemnification. We are going to have indemnification. Indemnification. Indemnification is one of the principle, or indemnify. Also, we are going to have certainty. We are going to have certainty. We are going to have certainty. Also, we are going to have utmost good faith. Utmost good faith. And then you're going to have insurable interest. Insurable interest. These are the 4 principles of insurance. These are 4. So with indemnification, if we can quickly just remind ourselves, we are talking about it usually applies to short-term insurance, as the insured is compensated for specified or proven harm or loss. This one, indemnification, this principle applies to short-term insurance. So this is whereby now the insurer agrees to compensate the insured for damages or loss specified in the insurance contract in return for premiums paid by the insured to the insurer. So hope we get it. But with certainty now, which sometimes you call it security, this one applies to long-term insurance, where the insurer undertakes to pay out an agreed upon amount in the event of loss of life. So this one applies to long-term insurance. So a predetermined amount will be paid out when the insured reaches a predetermined age or gets injured due to a predetermined event. So that is what? Certainty or security. But utmost good faith, this one, the insured has to be honest. This is where now the insured has to be honest in supplying details when entering in an insurance contract. So you don't have to lie as the insured. Make sure that you're honest so that you can give details about any product or any item that you want it to be insured. You want it to be in short. So also under still under utmost good faith, this is where we're saying both parties, insurer and insured, must disclose all relevant facts. That's why we're talking about in trying to be very honest. That's why it is called utmost good faith. But with insurable interest now, insured must prove that he or she will suffer financial loss if the insured object is damaged, lost, ceased to exist. That is that. So an insurable interest must be expressed in financial terms. So that is that. Hope we are together on that one. But the question wanted just only to list, not to explain. But that is just to remind us when we are as well given the explanation. So now we are moving on to question 2.2. Now we are moving on to question 2.2. 2.2 read as follows. Outline the difference between democratic leadership style and the autocratic leadership style. Then it's 4 marks. So let us start by democratic leadership style. Let us start by democratic leadership style. We can just, for the sake of space, and write them here. Democratic leadership style. Democratic leadership style. There's as what? Autocratic leadership style. Autocratic leadership style. So with democratic leadership style, we are going to say the leader involves employees in decision-making process. In decision-making process. So it means the employees are allowed to give their views, their opinions. That is what you call what? A democratic leadership. So the employees are involved. So this kind of leadership, it is called people-oriented. It's called people-oriented. Called people-oriented as employees' feelings and opinions are considered. As employees' feelings and opinions are considered. And opinions are considered. That is that. So this means that workers are going to feel empowered as they are involved in the decision-making process. Workers feel empowered. Workers feel empowered as they are involved, in the decision-making process. In the decision-making process. In the decision-making process. So they feel valued and that empowers them. So they can see that they are as well being considered. So that empowers them. But coming to the autocratic decision-making, here we know that decisions are concentrated on the top level management. So a leader takes all decisions alone. Here, a leader takes all decision alone without involving employees. Without involving employees. That is that. Also, it is a task-oriented. It is what? Task-oriented. It is a task-oriented as opinions of employees are not considered. Unlike in democratic, where they are considered, as opinions of employees are not considered. Are not considered. Also, new employees feel new employees feel confident, safe as strong leaders is provided. Also, we can say new employees, they're going to feel confident and safe. They're going to feel safe as strong leadership is provided. As strong leadership is provided. As strong leadership is provided, positive effect on new workers who value the micromanagement style. Those who feel micromanagement style. So that is that our question 2.2 question 2.2 1-2, just read it like that, 2.2. So now let us move on to question 2.3, where we are to read what now? The scenario. With this question, we are to read what? A scenario. So it said, read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. Then they're talking about the Parsons Wholesalers PW. They say, Cecily, the owner of the Parsons Wholesalers, uses different visual aids in his presentation. His favorite visual aid allows him to use what? A special pen to interact with what? With image on the screen. That is that when you are talking about the Parsons Wholesalers. So Cecily, Elaine, the owner, uses different visual aids in his presentation, and his favorite visual aid allows him to use what? Pen to interact with images on the screen. So 2.31 says, identify visual aids Cecily uses and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. So as it says, this visual aid allows him to use what? A pen. Like it says, to interact with images on the screen. It simply says now the visual aid that he is going to use is what? It's an interactive whiteboard. It is an interactive whiteboard. Interactive whiteboard or smartboard. So now we are asked to motivate from the scenario. So his favorite visual aid allows him to use special pen to interact with images. So from there we are saying we are going to quote from here. His favorite visual aid allows him to use what? Special pen to interact with images on the screen. So that is what our quote. So that is how we can motivate it. That is our motivation. That is our motivation. So now we are moving on to 2.32. 2.32 2.32 is a discuss the impact of the visual aid identified in question 2.31. So you know the visual aid that we identified is what? Interactive whiteboard. So now we want to know the impact of this visual aid, which is interactive whiteboard. So we want to know the impact. So you know very well when you're talking about the impact, you're talking about either positive, which is advantages, or disadvantage, which is negative. So we are asked to give the impacts of the interactive whiteboard. That is that. So we are asked to give what? The impact of interactive whiteboard. So would like us to also just write it here in for space. It is 2.32. 2.32. So we are going to start by, let's say, positives or advantages. Advantages of interactive whiteboard. So we are going to say the first one, it reduces the cost of the organization of purchasing additional equipment. It reduces the cost of it reduces the cost to the organization. Sorry, it reduces the cost to the organization. The organization of purchasing or buying of purchasing additional equipment. Additional equipment. Also, because the information or text or graphics can be projected directly from a computer. Because of the information can be projected. Because information can be projected directly from a computer. That is that. Now moving on again under the advantages. The interactive whiteboard have the functionality. They have what? Interactive whiteboard have what? Functionality. Have functionality. Have functionality of saving additional information. Of saving additional information. Of saving additional information that the presenter noted there during his presentation. That is that. Also still under the advantages, the interactive whiteboard can be controlled by the touch of the finger. It can be controlled by the touch of the finger. So that is that. Can be controlled by the touch of the finger. So the presenter can move away from the computer during the presentation. That is that. So now let us come to now the disadvantages. Because we're talking about what? The impact, disadvantages of what? Interactive whiteboard. When you're talking about the negative side of it. So we can say a presenter not skilled in the use of the interactive whiteboard may not be able to access all the functionality it offers. So here we're talking about a presenter not skilled. A presenter not skilled in the use of interactive whiteboard may not be able to access all the information. May not able to access all the information. Access all the information, all the functionalities, all the functionalities it offers. So that's that. So should only be used by a presenter who knows the unique features. Also, technical challenges may render it ineffective. Also, the technical challenges may render it ineffective. Example, you can talk of a loss of what? Signal, load shedding while using it. So that is that. So now let us move on to the next question. Let us move on to the next question, which is 2.4. 2.4 want us to do the characteristics of state-owned company. Explain the characteristics of state-owned company. So, characteristics of state-owned company. So that is what the question wants us to do. So we can say it requires 3 or more directors. Requires 3 or more directors. Requires 3 or more directors and 1 more shareholders. That is that. Also, they do what again? It is owned by the government. It is owned by the government. It's owned by the government. It's owned by the government. Also, we can say it is again the name ends with the letters SOC Ltd. The name ends with letters SOC Ltd. So that is that. So now let us move on to question 2.5. Let us move on to question 2.5. Where now we are given what a scenario. Says read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. Now we are to read what the scenario. At the opening event of Nkala Footwear, one of the employees tripped over building material and broke her ankle. The incident was reported within 7 days. The employee received compensation for the injury that she sustained, but the levy paid is the responsibility of the employer. So now the question says, identify the type of compulsory insurance that applies to the incident of Nkala. So we have to identify from the scenario that we have just read. Now we have to identify what the type of compulsory insurance. That is 2.51. So that applies to the incident. That is where we're going to talk about what? We are going to talk about compulsory insurance from the scenario is compensation fund. That is compensation COIDA. Compensation fund. Compensation fund for occupational injuries and diseases. Or occupational injuries, occupational injuries and diseases. Injuries and diseases. That is that. Then we are asked to quote characteristics or quote 3 characteristics from the scenario of type of compulsory insurance identified in question 2.41, which is what COIDA, which is our COIDA. So now we are to give the characteristics. We quote them from the scenario. As you can see, the incident was reported within 7 days. The incident was reported within 7 days. It's one of the characteristics for 2.52 that we are asked to give. The employee received compensation for the injuries sustained. The employee received compensation for the injury that she sustained. That is that. The levy paid is the responsibility of the employer. The responsibility of the employer. So all these are what are the characteristics of COIDA from the scenario. Characteristics of COIDA from the scenario. That is our 2.52. So we've just answered them. We've just answered them. We've just answered them. So this is first one, and then this is the second one, and this is our third one. So now let us move on to another question. 2.6. Now let us move on to 2.6. 2.6 read as follows. Discuss how capital can contribute to the success or failure of a private company. So we are now under the chapter of which is called forms of business ownership. We are now under forms of business ownership. So we want to know the factor that we are given is what? Capital. Capital is the factor. So we want to know the success as well as the failure of the capital. So we are going to say, when you write 2.6, let us, for the sake of space, write our 2.6 here. 2.6. We are going to have factor and then success, and then we have failure. That is how we are going to write them. Like I said, our factor is what? Capital. Our factor is capital. Capital. Capital becomes our factor. So we want to know its success and its failure. We want to know its success and its failure. The success of capital, more capital can be raised by issuing shares to the shareholders. More capital can be raised by issuing shares to shareholders. By issuing shares to shareholders. That is the success of capital. Also, large amounts of capital. Large amounts of capital can be raised. Remember, we are talking about what? The private company. So under private company, it means more capital can be raised by issuing shares to shareholders. That's the success part of it. Capital as a factor under private company. So we can be able to issue shares again. So that will enable us to have more capital. Also, as in large amounts of capital. Sorry, large amounts of what? Of capital can. Large amounts of capital can be raised. Can be raised since there is no limit on the number of shareholders. Since there is no limit on the number of shareholders. So because of there is no limit, it means we can have as many shares as we can. So that is a success factor of what? Of capital. Also, a company can access long-term capital. The company can access long-term capital. And therefore have a good long-term growth opportunities. So that is that. Also, now we are talking about the failure part of it. Now, it cannot grow into a very large business. It cannot grow into just this. It cannot grow into a very large business. Why? Because it cannot invite the public to buy shares. Remember, it is a private company, so it cannot invite the public to buy shares. So it means it cannot grow to a very large business. That is that. Restrictions on the transferability. So there is a restrictions. There are restrictions when it comes to transferability of shares. Restrictions on the transferability of shares. Shares may not attract financially strong investors. May not attract financially strong investors. Financially strong investors, because there are restrictions, as we have said, that it cannot even invite the public to buy shares. So that is that for question 2.6. Remember, when we're talking about, it was under private company. Private company. The success, the factor as our capital, success and failure of it under private company. So now we are moving on to question 2.7. So now we are under 2.7. 2.7 reads as follows. Suggest ways in which a presenter can handle feedback. Suggest ways in which presenter can handle feedback in a non-aggressive and professional manner. In a non-aggressive and professional manner. So that is that. So we are saying ways in which a presenter can handle feedback professionally. Ways in which presenter can handle feedback professionally. So that is going to be polite. Be polite. Be polite, confident when responding to questions. When responding to questions. When responding to questions. So try by all means to be polite. Also ensure that each question is clearly understood. Ensure each question is clearly understood. Clearly understood before responding. Before you can respond, before responding, rephrase questions if uncertain, if you're not sure. That is what we're saying. Ensure each question is clearly understood before what? Before responding. That is that. Hope we make sense. Also, the presenter should first listen, then respond. The presenter should first listen. Should first listen and then respond. And then respond. That is that. Also keep answers short and to the point. Keep answers short and to the point. The point. So that is that about the question 2.7. So now we have to move on to question 3. We have to move on to question 3. Question 3. This one was question 7. Question 2. Now we have to move on to question 3. So question 3 read as follows. Name 4 stages of team development. Name 4 stages of team development. So we have to name them. Name 4 stages of team development. So we are going to start with forming stage. Forming stage. Storming. Stage. Also norming. Stage. And as well as what? Performing. So these are our 4 stages of team development as we were asked to name 4 stages of a team development. So started by forming stage. You know, in the forming stage, this is whereby the individuals gather information, impressions about each other, and the scope of the task and how to approach it. That is in the forming stage. They are going to gather the information, impressions about each other, because this is their first time to meet, and the scope of task and how to approach it. Teams are comfortable and polite with each other during this stage. People focus on being busy with routines such as team organizations. For example, who does what, when to meet, and each other. Because that is the first meet. That is where we are saying we are trying to gather information and impressions about each other, the scope of the task, how to approach it, just like that. But on storming now stage, teams go through a period of uneasy conflict after formation. Different ideas from team members will compete for consideration. So this is where now conflicts arises here in this stage, as now team members are going to bring out their ideas, of which now they are going to come up with different ideas, which are going to cause what? The conflicts. Unlike in the forming stage whereby it was just for first meet, they were trying to know each other, they were very polite and stuff like that. They were busy with routines such as team organization and stuff. But when they come to the storming stage, now that is where now is a period of where there will be conflict after that formation. So team members open up to each other and confront each other's ideas and then as well as perspectives. That is how it is. But with no stage, team members come to an agreement and reach consensus. So this is a stage whereby now they can come to an agreement. After all those disagreements as well as differences that they were in the storming stage. So here, that is when they tend to have an agreement. Roles and responsibility now at this stage are going to be clear and accepted. Processes and working style and respect develop amongst the members and the norming stage. This is at the stage whereby now team members have the ambition to work for the success of the team. Conflict may occur, but commitment and unity are very strong under this norming stage. So that is that. That is after this storming. That is that. But with storming, it's a very difficult stage whereby you'll find that in some instances, storming can be resolved quickly, but in other teams, never. That is whereby in others, the team never leave this stage. You find that there are other teams which is difficult to leave this stage to the norming stage. So that is that. So now let us come to performing stage. With performing stage, which we sometimes call it working as a team towards a goal. Team members are aware of strategies and aims of the team, so they're going to perform. They have direction without interference from the leader. You see, processes and structures are set. Leaders delegate and oversee the processes and procedures. That is that. So now let us move on to another question. We are moving on to another question, which is 3.2. Now we are moving on to 3.2. So 3.2 read as follows. Identify unprofessional business practices that leader team must deal with in each statement below. So we have these two statements from 3.21 and 3.22. 3.21 it reads as follows. Natalie experienced an anxiety after unwelcome physical touch from her boss at work. And Natalie experienced what? Anxiety after unwelcome physical touch from her boss at work. 3.22. Mahomet, an employee of Ledaki, made 3-hour-long call to his mother during work time. That is that. So now we are to identify unprofessional business practice. So the first one, where Natalie experienced that an anxiety after unwelcome physical touch from a boss, that is a sexual harassment. That is sexual harassment. That is sexual harassment. But with Mohammed now, he is abusing one work time because this employee made a 3-hour-long call to his mother during the work time. So that is what the abuse of work time. That is the abuse of work time. Abuse of work time. So now we're moving on to 3.3. So 3.3 says, discuss the impact of force field analysis in solving complex business problems. Discuss the impact of force field analysis in solving complex business problem. So we have said when you talk of the what do you call the impacts, it can either be positive or negative. So let's start with positive side. Positive. Then we are going to start by the impact of force field analysis, the advantages. It provides a visual summary of all factors supporting and opposing particular area. We are saying it provides a visual summary. Visual summary of all factors. All factors supporting, and opposing. And opposing a particular idea. A particular idea. That is that. That is that. Also, we can say employees feel included. Employees feel included. How do they feel included? They feel included and are able to understand where the business is going. Employees feel included and are able to understand where the business is going. Also, employees develop and grow with the business. The employees develop and grow with the business. Develop and grow with the business. Because they are included in the process. So now let us move on to question 3.4. Distinguish between CSR and CSI. Distinguish between CSR and CSI. So we are asked to distinguish between corporate social responsibility and corporate social investment. So now let us come and use the space beneath. That is question 3.4, where we are to distinguish between 3.4. We are talking about corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility. So corporate social responsibility, the intention is to change the business practice. The intention is to change business practices. Is to change business practices. Also, with corporate social CSR, focus is on increasing image. It's on increasing image and profits. That is that. They do this corporate social responsibility. They give back to the community because of trying by all means to increase their image, because of trying to have a positive image, so that it can attract more customers to come and buy from their enterprise. So that will make them to increase the profits. That is the main focus of why they are doing that. Also, often intended as a marketing. Often intended as a marketing. Often intended as a marketing strategy. As a marketing strategy or as a marketing initiative. So they do that corporate social responsibility to market their business so that the potential customers, clients, they will see them with a good eye. They will see them in a positive eye that this business is giving back to the community, then let us go and make business with it. So that is their initiative. They are trying to do that by marketing their business. So now let us come to the uh, corporate social investment now. Corporate social investment. Corporate social investment. With corporate social investment, actively committing money and resources to uplift the community. They are actively committing, they are actively committing money and resources, to uplift the community, to uplift the community. That's why they invest. That's why they make investment in the community. That is to uplift the community. Not like corporate social responsibility where the intention is to change the business practice. You see, they are more on their business. So this one, they actively committing their money to and resources to uplift the community without looking for anything, without looking for the returns. They are not expecting what the return for their investment. All they wanted is to make sure that they uplift what the community without looking for any return on their investment. Their focus is on the upliftment of the community, like we are saying. Their focus is on the uplift. The focus is on the upliftment of the community. Without a return on investment, like I have said, without a return on investment. Without a return on investment. A return on investment. So that is that. They are not looking for any return on the investment that they made into the community. So that is that. But with this one, cooperating, their focus is what is, it's about profit. It's about having a good image. So that is that. So they intended to benefit, intended to benefit and uplift communities. And uplift communities. And uplift communities through social development. Through social development. So that is that. That's how we are to differentiate between corporate social investment and corporate social responsibility. The two are different. So now let us move on to 3.5. 3.5, we are to read what? The scenario. 3.5, we are to read what? The scenario, where the scenario reads as follows. Where the scenario reads as follows. We have that now. traders, DT. The DT traders strive to be a successful team. DT ensures that all members take part in decision making. The experience of other team members is respected. All individual standards are judged to determine what if goals are reached. If goals are reached. So now we are to answer the questions that follows. Identify 2 criteria for successful team performance applicable to DT traders. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So we have to quote from the scenario. So identify 2 criteria. So the first criteria that we can talk about is what? The collaboration. We can talk about collaboration. So we have to give what? The motivation. DT ensures that all members take part in decision making. That's the collaboration. DT ensures that all members take part in decision making. That is that. That is our motivation. That is our motivation. The second one is shared values. Shared values. This one is number 1. Then we have to give motivation on shared values. The experiences of other team members is respected. The experience of other team members is respected. So that is our motivation too. So these are our motivation from the scenario. Motivation. And now, which is question 3.51. So these are our motivation as we were asked to give what? As we were asked to give motivations here. So because of the limited space, you can see here our motivations. So now let us move on to 3.52. Let us move on to 3.52. 3.52, explain the characteristics of successful team members. Explain the characteristics of successful team performance. So we have to give what? The characteristics under 3.52. 3.52. Characteristics. So the first characteristics of successful team members is that there is a climate of respect and honesty. You are saying there is a climate of respect. There is a climate of respect or trust and honesty. And honesty. That is that. Also, we can talk about what? Share a set of team values. Share a set of team values. Share a set of team values and implement group decisions. And implement group decisions. Also, can talk about team members enjoy open communication. Team members enjoy open communication. Team members enjoy open communication and deal with terms of conflict immediately. So now let us move on to 3.6. 3.6. Discuss the impact of CSR on business, corporate social responsibility on business. That is 3.6. 3.6. 3.6. 3.6, where we are going to talk about the impact of CSR on business. Impact of CSR on business. So we start with positives. May attract experienced employees. May attract experienced employees. May attract experienced employees. That's true. Or increase the pool of skilled labor, which could increase productivity. So you know very well that the employees want to work to an organization whereby it is involved in corporate social responsibility. It is giving back to the community. Also, their well-being is going to be are going to be protected and be safe. They want to work where they are very secured. Improved image. Improved image as the business looks after employees. Improved image as the business looks after employees. Looks after employees. Also promote customer loyalty. Promote customer loyalty. Promotes customer loyalty, which result in more sales. So to such a business who are giving back to the community, who are practicing this corporate social responsibility, they are going to be able to increase more sales as the customers are going to repeat purchases. They're going to do what we call repeat purchases. They are going to come again and again to such a business. So that will increase its sales. So now let us see the negatives, disadvantages of this corporate social responsibility. As we are asked to do what? Impact of it can be positive as well as disadvantages, as well as negatives. Business may not be supported. Customers may not buy their products, resulting in decrease in sales. It might happen that business are not going to be supported. Business may not be supported. Business may not be supported, or customers may not buy their products or service, which is going to result in what? In decrease in sales. Though the business will be trying by all means to do what? To give back to the community, do that corporate social responsibility. But we find that customers are not coming to buy the products or services. That is a disadvantage. Also, this requires what? A detailed reports. Detailed reports must be thrown up. Must be thrown up. Must be thrown up, which is going to be time consuming. Which can be time consuming. Which can be time consuming. Also, social spending reduces business economic efficiency. Social spending reduces business or economic efficiency. Business or economic efficiency. Efficiency. Which makes it less competitive. Which makes it less competitive. That is that. So now let us move on to another question. 3.7, which read as follows. Recommend ways in which business can create an environment that promotes creative thinking in the workplace. That promotes creative thinking in the workplace. That is that. So we want the ways in which business can create an environment that promotes creative thinking. That promotes creative thinking. Wherever we can talk about training the staff. Train the staff in innovative or creative problem solving skills. So you train the staff in innovative, creative problem solving. You have to make sure that you train staff in innovative techniques. In innovative techniques. Train staff in innovative techniques or creative problem solving skills. Or creative problem solving skills. Or mind mapping as well as lateral thinking. Also encourage alternative ways of working or doing things. Encourage alternatives. Encourage alternatives, ways of working or doing things. Encourage alternative ways of working or doing things. Also, we can make sure that we place suggestions box around the workplace. Place suggestion boxes around the workplace. Around the workplace. around the workplace and keep the communication channels open for new ideas. So now we are to move on to question 4. Now we are to move on question 4. So we are under question 4. So we are going to do the business ventures. So question 4.1 says, give 2 examples of non-insurable risk. Non-insurable risks, those risks that cannot be insured. So we're going to talk about changes in fashion. Is one of the non-insurable risks. Changes in fashion. Changes in fashion. We can talk about irrecoverable debts. Irrecoverable debts. We can talk about the nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons as well. We can talk about high rate inflation. High rate inflation. So that is that. So question 4.2 outline the difference between insurance as well as what? Assurance. We are to outline the difference between insurance and assurance. So that is 4.2. 4.2. 4.2. We want the difference between insurance and assurance. So we are going to have insurance and we are going to have what? Assurance. Then we are to differentiate between the two. So let's first start by the insurance. Insurance based on the principle of indemnity. Insurance is based on the principle of indemnity, which means it applies for short-term insurance. It applies for short-term insurance. But with assurance, it's based on the principle of security, which is for a long-term insurance. It's based on the principle of security or certainty. That is that. Now coming again to insurance, it covers a specific event that may occur. It covers a specified event that may occur. Event that may occur. But with assurance, specified is certainty. This one we are very sure because you are saying it's a long-term insurance that when we are talking about when we are talking about the death, we are sure that we are going to die. So that is why we say It's based on the principle of security or certainty. So here we're talking about under insurance. We're talking about a specified event that may occur. Sometimes it cannot even occur. But here we are very sure that you are going to retire when you reach a certain age. You are going to die. That one you are sure. That is why we are saying specified event is a certainty. It's a certainty. But the time of the event is uncertain. Even though you don't know when, but the time of but the time of the event is the time of the event is uncertain. Is uncertain. That is that. So the examples under this insurance and assurance is that with insurance we can talk about examples under insurance. We can talk about property insurance. Talk about property insurance. Can talk about cash in transit. Cash in transit. Can talk about theft. But examples under assurance now. Examples under assurance. Can talk about life insurance. Life insurance. We can also talk about retirement annuities. Retirement. You can talk about retirement annuities. So that is that. So now let us move on to another question. Now 4.3. So here we are under 4.3. 4.3 says identify form of ownership. We are going to identify what form of ownership in each of the following statements. Let's quickly go to the statements. 4.31. Juan and Ruben decided to combine their capital and start business where they would have unlimited liability. 4.32, Letlotlo Ltd has expanded in such a way that it is now competing globally. It's now competing globally. So now we were asked to identify what form of ownership John and Ruben decided to combine. Once they combine, what is the form of business ownership? That is a partnership. That is a partnership. That is partnership. But Letlotlo Ltd has expanded in such a way that it is now competing globally. Once it ends with Ltd, and now is competing globally. It has expanded in such a way that it's now competing globally. So it means it's a public company. Public company. So that is that. It's a public company. So now let us move on to 4.4. 4.4, explain factors that must be considered when preparing a presentation. Factors that must be considered when preparing a presentation. So you have to have what? Clear purpose and main point of important information. So the first one is what? Clear purpose. Clear purpose, objectives, and main points. And main points of the presentation. Of the presentation. Also, we can talk about what? Main aims. Main aims captured in the introduction statement of the presentation. Make sure the main points are going to be in the introduction or opening statement of the introduction. Say the main points in the early of your presentation. Make sure that they are said in the opening statement of the presentation. That is very important. Main aims, captured in the opening statement or in the introduction. Opening statement of the presentation. Statement of your presentation. So that is that. So now let us move on to question 4.5. Let us move on to question 4.5. Suggest situations in which laissez-faire leadership style can be applied. Suggest situations on which laissez-faire, or as our 4.5 ones, what? The situations in which laissez-faire leadership style can be applied. So let us go and answer 4.5. 4.5. 4.5. So we're talking about the situations in which laissez-faire leadership style can be applied. So we are going to talk about subordinates and experts. Subordinates are experts. Subordinates are experts and know what they want. And know what they want. And can take responsibility for their actions and make responsible decisions. Also, the leader is very busy. The leader here is very busy. Leader is very busy. And delegation of tasks will increase what? Productivity. So we have to delegate under this leadership style. And delegation of tasks will increase productivity. Will increase productivity. Will increase productivity and improve efficiency of the organization. Also, we can talk about Leadership potential exists and team members need to improve and develop leadership skills. So that is when you're saying leadership. Leadership potential exists. Leadership potential exists. And or we can say team members need to improve. Team members need to improve. Need to improve or develop leadership skills. Or develop leadership skills. That is that. So now let us move on to question 4.7. 4.7, 4.6 in fact. 4.6. Said list two social rights of employees in the workplace. List two social rights of employees. The social rights in the workplace. List any two social rights of employees in the workplace. You can talk about clean water. They have right. They have what? Clean water. Talk about the clean water. You can talk about healthcare. We can also talk about education. 4.7. We are to read the scenario. As it says, Chaka Furniture, CF. Chaka Furniture always makes sure not to omit key information from their advertisements. They use false tactics to confuse customers to buy products. CF reports competitors to SA if they use unfair practices. So now we have to answer the questions. Then question says, quote any two ways from the scenario in which business can deal with unfair advertising in the workplace. So that is that. That is 4.71. We are to quote from the scenario. Chaka Furniture always makes sure not to omit key information of their advertisement. So that is this. Chaka Furniture. We are saying Chaka Furniture always makes sure not to omit key information from their advertisement. That is another one. So the other one is CF reports competitors to SA if they use unfair practices. That is number 2. So those are the answers from question 4.71. Hope we understand. Then let us come to 4.72, where it says, explain how business can apply key code principle of accountability. Of what? Accountability to improve ethical business conduct. So that is 4.7. And let us go and try to answer it here. 4.72. whereby we are talking about the application of, talking about the application of King-Code principle. King-Code principle of accountability. Of accountability. So that is that. So the first one you're going to see, there must be regular. There must be regular communication. Must be regular communication between management and stakeholders. Between management and stakeholders. So that is that. Also, the company should appoint internal and external auditors. The company should appoint internal and external auditors. Companies should appoint external and internal auditors to audit financial statements. To audit financial statements. That is that. Now let us move on to 4.8. Let us move on to 4.8. 4.8 says elaborate on the meaning of problem solving. Elaborate on the meaning of problem solving. So we know problems can be solved by a group or individual team member. Can be solved by group or individual team member. Can be solved. This makes problem solving more inclusive by so doing. Also, still under 4.8, we can say the group or team will generate or identify various solutions and critically evaluate each one. So you're saying the group will generate various solutions. Will generate various solutions. We generate various solutions and then critically evaluate each one of them. That is that. So now let us move on to question 4.9. Let us move on to 4.9. 4.9 reads as follows. Advise business on ways to deal with the following socio-economic issues, which 4.91 is poverty and 4.92 is HIV and AIDS. So let us start with poverty. poverty, for us to deal with that, we can donate money or food parcel to local news. Then donate money or food parcel. Food parcels to local news. That is that. Also still under poverty, we can as well support poverty alleviation programs that are offered by the government. Can also support poverty alleviation, support poverty alleviation. What poverty alleviation programs that are offered by the government. Programs that are offered by the government. That is that, by the government. So with HIV and AIDS, how are we going to deal with that socio-economic issue? This is where we participate in the existing HIV/AIDS prevention programs. We are going to do what? Participate in the existing HIV and AIDS prevention programs. Prevention programs. Prevention programs implemented in the community. Implemented in the community. Also, again, still under HIV/AIDS, how we can deal with that socio-economic issue. We can train or hire counselors. Hire counselors or train them. Hire counselors. Hire counselors to provide counseling. Provide counseling to infected and affected persons. Infected and affected persons. Affected and affected persons or employees. So this is the end of our presentation. Make sure that you're going to use this presentation as a guide to help you to prepare for the preparatory exams that you're going to write for business studies paper 2. So make sure that you're going to share with others and make sure that you are not going to forget to hit subscription button. Thank you.